so tell me, Bill, what's going on today?
Professor Daly, I'm upset because I lost the class election to become class president. And I don't understand it. I took the election seriously, and the person who won class president was a clown. He didn't take it seriously at all. What's going on here?
So there were 4 candidates, and 3 of you guys took it seriously. That means that all the voters who also took it seriously had to pick which one of you 3 they would vote for. However, all the voters who didn't take it seriously had the obvious choice of the class clown. And so even though probably the majority of the voters took it seriously, unfortunately, the class clown won because you guys split up the voters.
So you're telling me that even though more of the class was taking the election seriously, the election can still be won by someone who isn't taking it seriously just because he gets more of the first place votes?
I'm afraid so, and yes, you'd be right to call that unfair.
Man, I wish that instead of voting for just your first choice candidate, you had to rank the candidates.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. If we had that system, I'm sure this election would have gone very differently. But tell you what, you should go and visit the Heisman Committee.
The Heisman Committee, huh?
They have a similar system to pick who wins, and I'm sure they'd love to tell you more about it.
Cool, thanks. I'll check them out.
All right, good luck.
I appreciate your help.
Oh, and before you go, I did not receive last night's homework.
Still working on that. Sorry, Professor Daly. I'll get it as soon as I can.
I hope you will.
And so my journey had begun. I was determined to find the perfect voting system. I didn't know anyone in the Heisman Committee, but I have a friend that plays for the Chicago Bears, so I'm going to go ask him.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Yo, what's up?
Good to see you. So, listen, I have a question. I lost my class election in a fluke where me and all the other candidates that took it seriously split all the serious voters, and the one class clown who had all his friends voting for him ended up winning the whole election. So I've come here to talk to you about the way that the Heisman Award does their elections. Because weren't you in it last year?
I mean, that sounds really unfair, and yeah, I was in it last year, but let me tell you, Heisman system's pretty unfair too. I actually got the most first place votes, but I guess a lot of people didn't think I deserved it, so I also got a lot of the last place votes. I guess because the second place votes count for a lot too. The dude who got most of them, he beat me, even though I got most of the first.
So maybe the first and second place winners in a ranking system should do a face-off to make sure that whoever gets the most votes should win, right?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. It's called a runoff. I think they do that in Madagascar, actually.
Well, I guess there's only one place I need to go to find out. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Have fun. Hi there, welcome to Madagascar.
Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me.
I've been the U.S. ambassador for some time now, and I heard about your election in school back home. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So there were 4 candidates, and 3 of us were taking the election seriously, but we were all beaten by the class clown who got enough of his friends to vote for him to win the election. So I decided I needed to find a better voting system. So I talked to my friend who had been in the race for the Heisman Trophy, where they use a ranking system. But he said that he lost the election while getting a majority of the votes, so a ranking system couldn't be perfect either. But he told me that in Madagascar, you guys use a runoff system. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I sure can. So basically, every citizen gets to cast one vote for one candidate. If a candidate receives more than 50% of the votes, then they'll win. However, if one doesn't, which I assume happened in the case of your school election, then the 2 candidates who got the most votes will face off in a runoff, and whoever wins that head-to-head will become the winner of the election.
Huh. So if we used this system in my class election, then the class clown would have had to go up against one of the serious candidates head-to-head.
I'm sure you're right.
So are you telling me that Madagascar found the perfect voting system?
Well, unfortunately not. Have you ever heard of the Condorcet winner criterion?
What the heck is that?
So if there's a single candidate in an election who can beat every other candidate in a head-to-head election, just 1v1, then they would be the Condorcet winner. And if the Condorcet winner isn't the winner of the election, then that indicates that there's something unfair going on. Unfortunately, that could occur in a runoff.
But how could this be possible?
Well, think about this. Whoever wins the runoff only has to beat one other candidate in the head-to-head. It's more than possible that they'd lose to one of the other candidates who didn't make it to the runoff.
Huh, well, should the winner of an election have to beat every candidate head-to-head?
Well, that's a tough question. Not one I'm sure I know how to answer. But if you want to learn more about the Condorcet winner, you should go to Sweden. There's a few political parties there that use this method.
All right, well, thanks very much for your help.
All right, I wish you all the best. Good luck.
So I was off to Sweden to find an election that satisfies the Condorcet winner criteria.
Hi, I'm Dan. I represent the Pirate Party of Sweden in public relations. The Pirate Party is a political party that supports civil rights, democracy, freedom of information, net neutrality, and reform of copyright and patent law.
Well, that's not quite what I was expecting, but it sounds pretty legit.
Sure is, and tell me why you're in Sweden, my friend.
Well, I'm on the hunt for the perfect voting system, and I was told that the Pirate Party in Sweden uses a different type of election to elect their leaders. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about it.
I'd love to. We use a method of Condorcet voting called the Schulze method, or beat path voting. Basically, everybody must rank each candidate in a preference order. However, you are allowed to have them ranked equally. After all the voters submit their preference order, then each candidate is pitched in a head-to-head against each other, where just those two candidates are involved. And whichever candidate is ranked higher on the majority of preference rankings wins that election. And so, whichever candidate wins the most of these head-to-head elections is chosen as the winner.
Huh, that sounds pretty cool. Are there any flaws to it?
Unfortunately, there are. First of all, this system is quite susceptible to strategic voting.
Strategic voting? Never heard of it.
In this system, voters often cast their first place vote for a candidate who isn't actually their favorite candidate, so that they have a better chance of winning. And also, voters are way more likely to rank a popular candidate much lower in their preference order, so they'll be less likely to win.
Huh, makes sense. But is that really even that big of a problem?
Well, maybe not in the grand scheme of things. However, I think it is definitely problematic if voters are making up new preferences to skew election results in their favor. And if that's not enough, beat path voting does not satisfy the independence of irrelevant alternatives. Meaning that it would be possible for a candidate to win, even if they're irrelevant in the grand scheme of the election.
But how could that be possible?
Picture this. There are two rival candidates who each have 40% of the voters. And right in the middle, there's a moderate who just has 20%. However, when the moderate faces off against either of the popular candidates, the moderate wins the voters of the oppositional popular candidate.
Huh.
So therefore, the person who only gets 20% of the first place votes might win both head-to-heads and therefore be the Condorcet winner.
Wow. This is starting to sound way too familiar. The independence of irrelevant alternatives. This is exactly what happened in my school election. I feel like I'm going in circles. Excuse me, I need to make a call.
Hello, is this Bill?
This is Bill. Professor Daly. I've been all around the world, and I can't find the perfect voting system. I talked to an NFL player, I went to Madagascar and talked to the ambassador there. I even talked to a representative of the Pirate Party in Sweden. And every time I thought I was getting closer to the perfect voting system, there always seemed to be some type of flaw. Is there any perfect voting system out there?
I think it's time I told you about Arrow's theorem, Bill. Arrow's theorem proves that it is impossible for a perfect voting system to ever exist.
No perfect voting systems?
Well, he lays out a series of criteria, such as IIA, which I know you learned about in your journey, and he states that only a dictatorship can satisfy all of these criteria.
So you're telling me that a dictatorship is the only perfect voting system?
Well, that's the thing. It really is very far from perfect. Before you head off to North Korea, let me just go ahead and tell you that.
Makes sense. Well, I gotta say, Professor Daly, this is shocking news to me, but I'm glad I figured it out, and I learned a lot along the way.
I'm very glad you did. But it's good to have you home. I haven't had you in class for a week.
Thanks, Professor Daly. Good to be back.